All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on today's special edition of How to Find Cheap Tucson Homes for Sale. I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today on a Saturday. I do appreciate you taking time out of your day, and I'll do the best I can to go ahead and make sure that I respect the time that you're about to give me. So just to first start off, just let me say welcome. If you'd like, there's a chat box down on the right. You'll be able to go ahead and chat with me if you'd like. I'm certainly able to take your questions as we go along. Feel free to get a pad, a pen, some kind of piece of paper, something like that, to write some notes down, because you're definitely going to want to take a few notes here, because as I present, there's certain things that come to my mind that I use in my everyday business to help me find property at a pretty good discount that I'll share with you. And I know through experience that you're going to go ahead and find something out of this that's going to help. So without really getting too deep into it, my name's Carl Krensel. I'm an associate broker over at Realty Executives Tucson Elite. Now, that's not as important as what it is I do. You see, part of my job as a real estate agent is being also a real estate investor. And a lot of that has to do with finding property at a really good price. So what we're going to talk about are a few things. First, you're going to learn what is a hot deal in the first place. I mean, it's really important, I think, for us to what that means, because it's pretty subjective. I mean, what's a hot deal to you may not necessarily be a hot deal to anybody else. I mean, I think, would probably agree that not everybody looks at things the same way. You'll definitely want to know about how to find out about them before other people do. As the market increases, the competition's just getting tougher. I mean, let's just face it. Buyers and sellers out there, they're acting faster than ever. With the internet being what it is, information is traveling in milliseconds. People who are motivated to buy and motivated to sell are interacting quickly. And if you've got a job, you're trying to find your first house, or maybe you're an investor starting out, you're trying to find something in Tucson, it's kind of tough finding stuff sometimes. Well, we're going to cover that. I'm going to show you some tips for some successful negotiations, some things that I've picked up over the last 18 years that have helped me, that I'll share with you, that I think will probably help you in your travels. And then, of course, finally, if you sit with me through this next half hour or so, there's a bonus section that I'd like to share with you, where I'm going to have some free downloads for you, as well as other information. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So first, let's talk about what is a hot deal. Okay, so when we're talking about that, what does a hot deal mean to you? Well, for some people, it could mean a couple different things. I mean, for one, it could mean that it's a very low price. I mean, something in an area is worth, say, $200,000, and they're offering it out at $150,000. That could be it could potentially be a good deal. Another thing, of course, is motivated. How motivated are they? Think about it. Let's pretend that the house is worth $200,000, and the seller, not being all that educated in the process, decides to price their home for sale by owner at $250,000, $225,000. But they have to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, within the next 45 days. There's just no choice. They're a motivated seller, even though the home's overpriced. It just takes a little bit of education at that point. So what does it look like? Well, I like to kind of quantify it. It's easy to remember as the 3D effect. Death, unfortunately, it happens to all of us. There's property sometimes that's left over that needs to be disposed of. The family, unfortunately, many times is unable or unwilling to do any kind of repairs. It needs to be brought up to, old standards. Maybe mom and dad just didn't remodel the house and the kitchen's kind of a mess, right? How about divorce? I mean, it's true that you have a greater chance of dying, of course. I mean, it's 100% as you do a divorce. I mean, that's 51%, but it still happens. And it happens quite frequently. People who are in a messy divorce, sometimes don't want to have to spend a lot of time on the market. And they certainly don't want to have to agree to a real estate agent or something along those lines. And of course, disease. Unfortunately, the world we live in, people are faced with a lot of diseases that can be very debilitating. And sometimes the cure is often worse than the disease. And quite frankly, for people who are in a situation where they're facing these hard choices, sometimes they need a strong investor or a willing buyer to come in and help them buy a property so they can move on with the rest of their life. Another way to remember it, of course, is M&Ms. Now, if you're a real estate agent watching this, an investor, or even if you're a full-time, just a person who's buying a home on your own, think about it another way. What are the mistakes and motivation that they're displaying on the ads that they're showing? Think about it this way. Mistakes in Tucson, let's say, could be about zoning. Something's zoned R2, which would allow you to build another lot on it. It's more than 10,000 something square feet, so you could build another thing on it. But, the homeowner is advertising it as R1, which is only one use, one home. That's a mistake. That is something that you could capitalize on that would make added value to the home. Motivation. Again, this motivation character comes right back into play when we think about how our motivation factors into our decision-making process. Sometimes when we're faced with tough choices, we make the choices necessary to get our dreams. Now that we know that, we got to think about how we're going to find all these people. Okay, great. It's motivated, sure, price. Okay, great. But how do we find them? Let's just get to the brass tacks of it. Well, here's a couple things to think about. Over 90% of home buyers begin online. Okay, so you, me, agents, everybody, practically, if they're looking for a home, they go on the internet. Now, if you have a motivated seller, now this is what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the guy who can wait 3, 5, 6 months to get his money. We're not talking about the guy who's just fishing for a price. We're talking about somebody who's got to go. They got to sell, because that's what's required for you to get a discount. They have to have some kind of motivation. So if they're motivated, well, they're largely untrained. It's not like they have great advertising experience. They're just going to say what they feel. We attach meanings to words. We say that we read something, we say, okay, well, that means X. But the thing is, that's clouded by the perception we have, because our thoughts aren't the seller's thoughts. Think about how a seller is going to describe their home when you're looking for property. An example of that would be keywords. Keywords like must sell, handyman special. How about fix up or as is? You see, when you think about it, these words, sellers, agents, everybody, use to describe certain situations or conditions on a property. If you can use these keywords to your advantage, you can help find and identify specific types of property. Now, this obviously is from the multiple listing service. Now, I hear people tell me all the time, oh, there's no deals on the multiple listing service. Oh, goodness, there's no good deals on the multiple listing service. Okay, I can accept that. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that there aren't. There are, but let's say there aren't. What about this one? This is an actual Craigslist ad. A person will describe their situation clearly on Craigslist. My brother passed away about 6 weeks ago. We must sell his house quickly. Right? That's a sad situation, but it unfortunately happens. It's in that 3D category. It's a great house, but it needs some work. You're not going to be able to get a mortgage on it. That's just why we're kind of looking for an investor with cash and know-how. So listen, if you're an investor, let's say, they're telling you everything about you need to know about this property, and they're saying, listen, we're going to be at the house Saturday morning from 7 to 1. Why don't you come on over, take a look at it, and give us an idea what you think? This is actually on Craigslist found through keyword searching. You can also find keyword searches like handyman. In your search parameters online, just type in handyman and you'll pull up certain words in the ad, handyman. You can see that this particular unit had fire damage. This is the thing, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at. Now, how you can mix the two, you want to learn how to get these properties to you quickly, because that's kind of the problem, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, these properties that are coming on the market, when you're a seller, let's say, you're putting your home on Craigslist. Hey, I got to sell my house. It's a fix up. I want to sell it as is. It's an estate sale or whatever the keyword that you're choosing to use. You want to get that sent to you right away so you can find out about it. Because remember, the first person who gets the lead and responds to it oftentimes is the person who wins the deal. That's an important point. If you're an investor or a regular buyer or an agent, if you get a lead, especially in this space, if it's a motivated seller who's got to sell at a discount, you want to know right away. The good news is you can do this for free. You can do it for free through Craigslist using ifttt.com. ifttt.com is if this, then that. That's simply what that means. And what you can do with Craigslist and ifttt is you can use recipes. That's just what it's really called, these little recipes, where they will go ahead and search whatever you tell them to search. You tell them to search Craigslist in a particular help, wanted or home wanted or whatever in Tucson. And you tell them every time something like that comes up, I want you to email it to me. In this case, you could see that I said 10-minute skill. This is just the name of the recipe, handyman. So searching for the word handyman. And every single time the word handyman comes up, it emails it to me. Every time the word fix up comes up, it texts me. You can set this up any way you like it. You can have it set up to your phone. You can have it set up to your email. You can have it set up to Google Docs. I mean, any kind of thing you want to do. So you can keep track of these properties, make offers on them, whatever you want to do. And you can do all of this for free. The next space I would probably recommend you start looking for some of these off-market deals are the code violations. See, if you're not familiar with this, this is something that I think is really one of Tucson's hidden gems. I mean, this right here is got to be the best website I can think of. Neighbor support, .net, topics, crime disorder, whatever that is, that's the best site of all. You'll want to bookmark this place. And let me tell you why. If you're a buyer looking for a home, if you're especially an investor or an agent looking for leads or something like that, you want to find a cheap place, you want to think about things in a different way. Look for people who are having some problems who could use your services. Especially if you're an investor looking for a discount house. I mean, think about it. This is an example of some of the latest cases opened by code enforcement. Now, you can see that they come from all different kinds of things. For example, today, I'm sorry, I guess it'd be the 9/14, I guess it was, different kinds of things. There's trash, weeds, illegal dumping, sign violations, vacant and neglected program. That's a house. 1201 North Venice Avenue. There's no sense in driving for dollars or looking for vacant houses or anything like that. There's one right there. You can actually take it one step further and you can find where it'll say on some things, minimum housing. Minimum housing. And it'll give a code where you can go ahead and click and you can get even more information. What you'll find then is you'll see what the actual code violation was. And in this case, you can see that it has electrical issues. You got outlets that are not working. There's holes in the wall causing roaches to come in. The shower's got bad porcelain, causing him to cut his feet. What this simply is, the tenant of this house saying, I'm tired. I've called him about, he's called the landlord, whatever. He's got a dilapidated structure, insects, wiring, all these problems. if I was a cash investor looking for property in Tucson right now, I would be looking at something like this. I would be looking to find the owner of that home through the assessor's record or whitepages.com or any other method that's legal. Find the owner, contact them, and say, listen, have you considered selling that property that looks to be like the code enforcement people are giving you a hassle about it? That might be a great source for you to find something at a discount. Oh, God, yeah, man, these people have been driving me crazy. Maybe the guy's living in California. Maybe he's, he used to live here, but he doesn't, live here anymore. And this is just a hassle and he wants to get rid of it. You call him up. Hey, I was just calling about that place on 29th. Have you thought about selling it? I'm looking to buy, however your dialogue is. That's a way to find it. Then, of course, you can extend this same keyword search criteria back into the multiple listing service. Now, this is something that your agent will do for you. If you're a buyer looking to buy a property or an investor looking to buy property on MLS, and there are still fantastic deals on the multiple listing service each and every day, okay, that you can find if you work in a diligent manner. So if you think about it, the MLS keyword searches that you could find, estate sales, fix-ups, things of that nature, can lead you to quite a bit, like this particular listing. Great fix-up opportunity, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, so much potential. Roof has been recently redone and some original details remain. When you read original details remain, what I read there is remodeling. I mean, we need to do probably some kitchen updating, some things like that, right? Great central location close to the U of A. People are saying that they're looking for property that's close to the U of A all the time. UMC and all modern conveniences. Estate sale. That's the first keyword. Sold as is. That's another keyword. Don't miss this one, right? So when you think about it, this automatic program, your MLS, will go ahead and send this to you automatically every day when something like this comes on the market. If your agent is using something like this, they could probably set it up for you as well. If you're an agent looking for great property, I would definitely use this. Why? Because you'll get advanced knowledge about properties many times before your competitors will, simply because you're getting it first the second it comes on. Now, the question comes up then, if it's mistakes, motivation, the 3D effect, using keywords, checking code violations, all these different things we're doing to find, below market property, stuff that other people don't have, deals that where do we physically go to find them? Where would you find the hottest deals? If you're an investor, especially a cash investor, where would you go to find the hottest deals? Well, of course, you could certainly go and look in through the multiple listing service and figure out the most cash sales, where they were and all that. You could do all of that, and of course you could. But what I would recommend for the average person is just go on the multiple listing service over there, or not the multiple listing service, but the MLS, TucsonRealtors.org. And what you'll find is the statistics portion. You'll want to go ahead and click that. Free statistics are available to the public, and they're updated monthly. What you'll find is something that looks like this. Now, for example, this is from September, all the actives and solds by the zip code. Now, why this is important? Well, it's true that certain zip codes are bigger than others, and as such, they have many more homes. But as a percentage, it'll help you understand where most homes are being bought in terms of activity. So, for example, you could find and look through all of Tucson's zip codes and see the number of actives, the numbers of sold, and the number of percentage-wise, how many actually sold. So let's take a closer look. We can see through all these sample zip codes, there's a certain number, like 85653 has 106 active properties in there, yet only 17 sold in a month. What that really means is you got about a 16% chance of, selling in that home, or selling that home in that area. It means that really there aren't too many people buying. So I would want to focus most of my activities, especially if I was an investor or somebody looking for a hot deal, where I could find the most activities. What's the best areas to go for that? Well, 85706 statistically appears to be that way. When you think about it, they got 42 active properties in that zip code, and almost a little over half of them sold in a month. That's fast activity. This will help you. So then you just go out and get a map to figure out where 85706 is, and you'll know exactly where you need to focus your efforts. Now, once you've obtained a contract, you've figured out where you're going to go, you know how you're going to, you got to figure out what you're going to negotiate this for. You got to figure out how much you're going to offer and all that. The purpose of this webinar is not really to teach you how to price property. That's another seminar, so to speak, but it is a good time to talk about some principles of successful negotiations. For example, as a realtor with 18 years experience on 2 coasts, okay, as an investor myself, who has bought and sold homes personally, as a landlord who's bought properties to rent out to others, and as a for sale by owner myself, I mean, I obviously sell my own homes by owner. I've got quite a few perspectives on this issue of negotiations. I mean, it's not one-sided. In the realtor community, there's a joke. It goes that sellers, they want prices like they were in 2005. And buyers want the prices like they were in 1925. The fact is that as a buyer, you have to be aware of the seller's perspective. That's just a fact. If you want this house, if you want this deal, you have to at least consider it. You don't always have to follow it, but you do have to consider it. So let's think about what that really has to mean for us. Well, you always want to pre-qualify the seller for their motivation. I mean, that's just a fundamental fact. No matter what angle you come from in real estate, you want to qualify them for their motivation. If they're not supremely motivated to sell this home, why are you fooling with it? It's just not worth your time. Number 2, you always want to know the comparables better than anyone else. Listen, I can't tell you as a practitioner, as an investor, as a homeowner trying to sell my homes, I can't tell you how many times somebody from the public has come to me and told me, well, this house down the way sold for such and such, and this is why my home's worth X. Or, well, we're going to give you a certain amount for your home because the house down the street sold for Y. If you don't fundamentally know what the homes in that area are selling for, you better, because that's going to help you make thousands of dollars extra on your buy. Remember, the money is made on the buy. Point number 3, the person who knows the contract best wins. Listen, if you're competing with somebody, you really want to know that contract, and make sure, if you're not an agent, make sure that your agent does, because that contract knowledge will help you negotiate to your better advantage and get you the concessions you need. I know it seems hard to believe, but point number 4 is crucial. No handwritten contracts. Honest to God, guys, in this day and age, with DocuSign and everything else that agents and everybody else has in front of them, you can, type up a contract very easily on a computer or an iPad and have it signed digitally. Now, obviously, there are certain exceptions. If you're driving by and you happen to see a house that's for sale and the guy's, oh yeah, I got to get rid of it and it's a super great deal, and you just want to write it up right then and there, sure, go right ahead. But by and large, you and I both know that we're probably not in that situation. And appearances a lot of times are almost everything. Point number 5, the higher the earnest money, the better. Listen, don't be afraid to say what the earnest money will be, because you still have to get through the inspection period. Remember, it's not spent until the inspection period is over. You still have time. And then, of course, when you're in competition, because you're going to be, especially if you're an investor, especially if you're a realtor, you're going to find yourself in competition. And if you are in competition, you want to start to humanize your offer. If you're a buyer, you'll want to go ahead and write a letter to the seller. Dear Mr. Seller, my name is Jane Doe. We've got a dog, we got a kid, or whatever it is. Tell them about why you want to buy the house. I can't tell you, if you are trying to buy a property and you're competing against an investor, many times that will make the difference because you've humanized it a little bit. And when you sign it personally, it shows that you've taken the time. You've honestly taken the time, and you've not just, this is just not another deal or another property or something else that you're making an offer on. You've actually, with intent, have taken the time to see if you can make a deal with this person. You want to make part of your earnest money non-refundable in some cases. If you're in competition with others, you can make part of your earnest money non-refundable after the inspection period. You know, why not? I mean, it's going to be that way anyway. You could certainly shorten your inspection period. Here in Arizona, obviously, it's 10 days. You know, you could shorten it up. Most of the time, the competent agent or you could arrange for your showings and all your inspections to be done within 3 days, 3 to 5 days, something along those lines. You could certainly do. If possible, close quicker. You know, push your lender to see if they can move the closing up. You know, if you're paying cash, try to move the closing up quicker. There's nothing a seller loves more than the certainty that they don't have to wait forever to get a deal done. Many times that's what stops a buyer from getting a home versus a seller who's going with a cash offer. It's that certainty. So if you can do anything to remove contingencies and close quicker, well, that's even better. What kind of contingencies? Well, you could remove appraisal contingencies. You could remove inspection contingencies. You could remove any kind of basically any kind of contingency that you may have in your contract. Those are just the two that come to my head right off the top of my head. Now, when you're in active negotiations, you definitely want to keep an open mind, okay? And never, let the negotiations die on your side because, listen, there's always something you can counter, right? Look for ways to meet them in the middle, see what they need. Don't be afraid to table something. Well, you know what, Mr. Seller? It seems like the price we're having a little bit of trouble with. Why don't we just talk about the closing date, for example? If we could figure that part out, what date would work for you? Set it aside for a little bit. Because remember, when you're talking to a seller, especially a motivated one, the fear of loss is definitely a greater motivator than the opportunity to gain. If you can remember that, you're going to go a long way in your negotiations. Remember, the fear that the seller may have about losing you or losing your money or losing your deal sometimes can be a greater motivator than the opportunity to get more money someplace else or out of you. So for example, if you could convey, for example, a way to close quickly, meet their need. Listen, I understand you need to get to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Tell you what, I don't mind. Why don't I help you? If you need a couple extra days to move out, I'm negotiable. I'm flexible. Let's figure this out. But that way, they know that it's tied to moving and they're motivated. And they know that if they screw the deal up, so to speak, well, then they're going to possibly lose the deal in Tuscaloosa. And people don't want that. So remember, fear of loss is a greater motivator than the opportunity to gain. So you've been very patient with me so far, and it's been about a half an hour. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up very quickly here with our bonus section. I just want to say thank you for spending the time with me today to talk about how to find a cheap property here in Tucson. I'd like to go ahead and share a couple things with you that I'd like to give. If you're an investor here in town, what I would certainly like to recommend giving you is a deal evaluator. This is something, it's a free download that you can get if you've got Excel or some kind of spreadsheet. You can certainly download it there at smokinghousedeal.com. If you're a regular buyer looking for a property, you could certainly use our property repair checklist. I mean, that's something that we tend to give to our investors and our buyers so they can make sure that they don't miss anything. If you're looking at a lot of properties, if you're a savvy investor, you're looking at a lot of property. So things run together after a while. So if you need some kind of thing to help you with that, well, then we have those resources available. If you're a regular home buyer or an investor, of course, you're more than welcome to use my IFTTT recipes. You can modify them for the code words that you'd like to use instead of handyman, fix up. Maybe you want to change it. I don't know. But certainly put it into your phone number or your email address. That way you can get notified right away. That pretty much settles everything that I wanted to say. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Let me just go ahead and open up the questions very quickly here. Does anyone have any? Whoops. All right. All right. Now, I know that it's going to take about 45 seconds for me to say something before you'll hear it. So I'll be sure to go ahead and just give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have if you do. All right, well, seeing no questions, I appreciate everybody stopping by today. If you're a realtor stopping by, feel free to hit me up at Realty Executives Tucson Elite or 10minuteskill.com, where I teach investors as well as realtors sales skills for success. If you're a regular buyer and you're looking for an agent to help you, then certainly feel free to give me a call. Either myself or one of my associates can help you get what you need done in Tucson and get you a great deal. Thank you so much, and you have a powerful sales day. Bye-bye.